Hello, and welcome to the Let's Talk Beef podcast. I'm your host, John Boyum, and this is episode number 1. Today I am joined by Ted and Katie Brenny of Mazeppa, Minnesota, and we discuss how they not only manage a cow-calf operation, but stay very active in the state and national beef industry, while both maintaining full-time jobs. Sounds pretty good? Let's get started. Let's Talk Beef podcast. I am honored today to sit down with Katie and Ted Brenny of Brenny Farms in Mazeppa, Minnesota. We're going to start off here and just let Katie introduce herself, and then we'll move on to Ted. So, Katie, you got the floor.
Thanks, John. So I grew up 8 miles from where we actually are sitting today in Sombrota, and I was really involved in 4-H and FFA after we moved back to the farm. I actually lived in town for a few years, and my FFA project was actually working at the local sales barn where livestock are sold. Started out there age 7, from sharpening pencils to delivering peanuts to the cattle buyers, to in the office to actually moving cattle around. So that's kind of where my love for the beef industry really came from. From there, I was actually going to take over the sales barn. So I went to Auctioneering College, but Sombrota Livestock Auction Market had a different future, and they have now became Central Livestock. So that meant large animal veterinarian was what I was going to do. So I headed off to college for that, and biochemistry found me and was not my friend. So my professor said, "You like to talk, so why don't you do marketing communications?" So I ended up in that direction, still active in the beef community. From there, went and worked at Land O'Lakes after college, got my master's from Iowa State, went to Minnesota Farm Bureau, and found myself back in agronomy in the digital space, working with Bayer Crop Science. On top of that, we run Brenny Farms, Ted and I do, so that's kind of my path to where we are today.
Okay, Ted, before you go, I got Auctioneering School, really?
Yeah, so I was there in June of 2004. I was the youngest female. We had the youngest student was 9 from Florida, Lucas. He's quite the little kid. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and some of those friends, or I call them friends, still from Auctioneering College, we're still in touch with each other. Some have been really successful, running an auctioneering company or working with their family. Others, like myself, kind of take different avenues off of that. I really attribute my speaking skills to that. My ability to do yoga breathing really came from Auctioneering College. It was a ton of fun. Stay in touch with a lot of those people still, and haven't made it back down to, they have 4 classes a year at Worldwide Auctioneering there in Mason City, but it was really a ton of fun.
Have you done any auctioneering?
So coming out of that, I did the dollar wagons, Spring Valley Sales, every Sunday. You could find me there. I worked for Houghton's Auctioneering Service out of Red Wing, and I did a lot of clerking for them. I enjoyed it, but when you don't have a family or a way into the business, it's really hard to get into just from owning the liability insurance and all the startup fees. It's similar to farming and ranching.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate to do it there, did a few charity auctions, but kind of dropped off. And actually, Ted heard me for the first time about a month ago as we were preparing for a young farmer contest.
Yeah.
So don't really do a whole lot of it anymore, but still enjoy it.
Cool. All right. Well, speaking of Ted.
My path, I grew up probably roughly 3 hours away from here now. So, yes, I moved to where Katie was from once we met. I grew up in central Minnesota, but grew up on a dairy and beef farm. There I was very active within 4-H and FFA as well. And my true passion was working with the livestock. That led me to actually going to college. I went to St. Cloud State for an accounting degree, basically to be able to better manage the business side, because my eventual plan was to go home and take over the farm, which didn't happen because the dairy herd was sold before I was at that point. So that led me to a career within Computer Financial, where I do appraisal reviews for them on a secondary market. So I get to review appraisals throughout the U.S. on a daily basis. I still keep active within the livestock industry with the farm. My true passion is the livestock, so that's kind of why we've kept the beef cows around and kept involved with them.
So both of you had different ultimate paths that completely changed.
Yes, and they still change every day.
Yes. So what happened with the auctioneer? Like they just, like you were set to buy it, or like what just come in and manage it, or what?
Yep.
Where was going? Like, what was that going to be?
So the two brothers actually had children that were not really interested. One of them was actually my babysitter growing up. So I spent more hours at the sale barn when Amanda babysat us. But really, they just didn't have anybody. And so I was showing a strong interest. And so they sent me to Auctioneer College.
Yep.
The plan was to go to school for egg business and then to come back and not necessarily buy in, but to start to become more integrated into the operation with a future long-term plan. But when the opportunity came to be bought, it was a family decision. I fully respect that looking back. But when you're a senior in high school, it kind of rattles your world. But so that kind of changed that path. And then I'd spent a couple of years working for the veterinarian clinic as well. So I thought I could handle that. But like I said, biochemistry just kind of ruined that.
Yeah,
so.
I can feel that. And then so they sold the dairy. Your parents sold the dairy cows?
Yes.
When did they sell them?
That would have been in 2005 they sold.
Okay. Because I grew up on a dairy farm, and we sold our cows in 2003. So conveniently right after I graduated high school.
We started with our beef herd back home. Dad started that in probably around 1998, 99.
Yep.
And kind of built that up so that way his plan was to sell the dairy herd off and just have the beef cows.
Okay. But did you liked the dairy side of it at the time?
Oh, yeah, at the time. But now looking back with the current economic conditions.
You're glad they sold?
Yes.
The joke is I told him when we met that if he still was a dairy farmer, that would have been the end.
No, my wife says that all the time, too. So I get that. So
yeah, we enjoy to help out local dairy farmers. We'll go milk cows for him or kind of go help him with whatever it is.
Yeah. All right.
It gives him his dairy fix.
So where did you two meet? How did that all come about?
We met in, what year was it, 05?
Yep.
At the Minnesota State Fair.
Oh, boy.
We were
the great get-together.
The great Minnesota get-together. We were both up there showing cattle.
Okay.
So that's how we met.
Never knew each other before or nothing?
No, so he was showing open class. I was showing FFA, and you know how a friend of a friend introduces you? Yep. First time I met him, the story came out later, he thought I was annoying. But the next day, he showed up again and just never left.
He loved that annoyance.
Yeah. Our first date was even to a cattle sale, so that was pretty funny. He showed up driving the same car that I drove, and my mom was like, oh, boy.
Boy, here it comes.
Yeah. No, we, like I said, met at the state fair. It was a lot of fun. And then we just kind of kept going back to the state fair, and engagement pictures were even taken there. Oh, wow. So kind of holds a special place. We don't show anymore, but we still like to go up and visit everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. So when did you guys met in 05, married?
In 2012.
2012, wow.
Yeah, we had to make sure this made sense.
Made sense, wow. That's the complete opposite of my path. So now you guys have met, courting, dating, whatever you want to call it. And so when does the family farm, or however you want to call the operation, when does that begin to come together?
So the unique thing I think about our story is that we both came from farming families. We're both fifth generation. But neither one of us had the chance to go home and farm. So Ted's family obviously didn't have the dairy anymore. My family farm is mainly pumpkins and pretty small acreage outside of Sombrota. So that really wasn't a chance. So actually I was in college and Ted lived in my bedroom with my family, which I think is why we're still together some days. And trying to find a place where we could have the cows.
So you can have like conversating stories about your mother.
Yeah,
like, I know.
Yeah, it was great. But I really think him and my brother became pretty close. My brother was pretty active with us before he went to college on the farm. But the beef cows were up at your mom and dad's. And we spent a lot of time on the road. And so this farm opened up. And so we purchased it with the help of the bank, who still is very involved today.
And that was in 2011. So you can kind of say that was truly when our story came together. So it was the fall of 2011 when we bought this place and brought all the cows down here. And then
so these cows come from your parents?
Not anymore.
Not really anymore.
Not really.
So we've kind of...
The initial group did?
The initial group did.
Yeah.
But we've kind of changed up our herd as we've gone because when we met, we both kind of had... A lot of our cow herd was old show heifers.
Yeah.
And so... And at that point in time, we were calving a small group of cows in the spring, small group in the fall. 2014, 2015 came along. 14 came along. It was a miserably cold winter.
Yep.
And after treating all the calves that spring, we decided we're done with this. So we then actually pretty much, for the most part, sold all the cows except for the few of the fall calvers at that time.
Okay.
And kind of have rebuilt back up. So now we're 100% calving in the fall only.
Okay.
So we start calving in August and finish up in September.
And the Shorthorns were here, but they've slowly weeded themselves out. So now we're mainly Charolais and Angus.
Charlie, purebred stuff or just commercial or?
Little both.
Little both.
Little both.
A lot of them are purebreds, but there's no papers or nothing on some of them.
Yeah.
We're kind of at the point we got our few cow families that we really like and trying to build off of them with the purebreds, and everybody else is basically a commercial cow.
So go ahead. No.
As I say, I think our real goal is that we want the cattle buyers to call us and say, "Are calves ready to go yet?" And we're getting to that point. I mean, last year I called and they said, "Oh, we were waiting for you to call." So we just want to raise highly functional cattle that do well in the feed yard, because at the end of the day, it's all about beef that goes on the plate.
So what happened in the spring of 14 that made you decide to go all fall?
We had a case of crypto go through the calving barn, and we treated every calf at day 4.
At day 4.
When every calf lived in my house, and we saw the veterinarians every day, and the bills piled up, and I was like, enough of this. Calves lived in bathtubs, lived in back hall.
One of them, we decided, why are we fighting Mother Nature rather than working with Mother Nature?
So was it a wet, so that was a wet spring?
Wet, cold.
Muddy.
Wet, cold, mud.
Yep. And just never gave up.
But every cattleman loves wet snow. Ugh, yeah.
Yeah, and now, I mean, really, we want cows to do what cows are meant to do by God, and that's on grass. And I mean, we both work off farm jobs, and so when a calf is born in August, September, if the mom forgets it or doesn't lick it off, it'll still be alive when we go out and check twice a day.
Yep.
Or, this time of year, I mean, you got literally minutes to find it.
And one of the reasons why we chose to go to fall calving versus just moving our calving gate back to like May or June was, at the time we were currently renting a bunch of smaller pastures, and then that just meant that we were going to have that many more bulls to cover the cows, where this way everybody was home for winter feeding before we started breeding, so that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, makes sense.
And this time of year now, when calves are ready to be sold to the next part of the beef community, there's green grass. I mean, guys want calves. You could say, well, you might lose a little competitive market because you're not with the rest of the group, but we've found prices to be just fine or above what we had, because, guys, green grass, right?
Yeah.
You got to see something out there eating it.
So now you got the farm, change it to fall calving. So now what's the next step? Just getting more involved in the beef industry? Is that kind of what you thought, or where did this passion of getting involved, was it always there? Do you want to be more involved in stuff on the state level, national level, and stuff like that? Where did that come from?
So I've always been involved with promoting beef. You can go back and find pictures of me in 5th and 6th grade going to the kindergarten rooms, talking about beef and the many hats a farmer wears. And then just kind of continued from beef ambassador, county beef princess, to state beef princess, national shorthorn lassie queen. Yes, I wore a kilt and a show ring.
I've worn a kilt. That's fun.
Yeah. And I think continued the promotion side. And then as got in FFA, got out of FFA, it was kind of what's next to continue to talk about agriculture. And we found that to be in Farm Bureau and the county cattlemen's. And we've really gotten into the policy side. Ted, that's his true thing. He really enjoys to sit and analyze and see what's going on in the policy.
Are you a politician, Ted?
I'm not a politician, but I'm intrigued by what
You're
they
intrigued,
do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we like to go do it. And National Cattlemen's Beef Association, being a member of that, just really allows us to kind of interact with other cattlemen, share ideas, talk about what they're doing. We bring ideas home, try it. It's probably one thing we're really good at, is trying lots of things to see what works and what doesn't.
So what works and what doesn't?
Concrete works really well.
Concrete works really well.
Well, like today we've never had the bales out in the pasture for fed out there before in the past, so you read enough about it, and I know some people that do it and say they love it and it helps fertility with the soil, so we're giving it a try.
So you're feeding before just on cement and ring feeders?
Yep, we're in bunks.
Oh, in the bunks, okay.
Yep.
We've done limit feeding to wet beet pulp to silage to back to dry hay to corn.
It's just,
over the years.
Yep. Just even the different genetics that we've used, trying different ones. I mean, you never know some of that until you try it. So that's kind of one nice thing with we AI all of our cows, so that allows us to kind of take a small group of them and try something new with it, see if it works or not.
Yeah.
Where if you just had a bull, you're stuck with everybody. But
probably one of the biggest things we've done the last couple of years is working with the National Natural Resource Conservation Center and local soil and water. They've helped us come up with some different plans and trying to do things
Between them and just some other local grazers that we're good friends with, we've been working quite a bit with them as far as what works, what worked on paper, but you guys tried it and never tried again.
So what are you trying to do with NRCS?
So we've got some waterways that need some tender, loving care, and we're all about improving water quality. So working with the Department of Ag and the local groups. We've taken some trees out, actually, which created some mud holes, fly traps, mosquito, not good for the ground, to putting in some different terraces, different seating, we've got one major waterway that we got to do something with, because otherwise it's just too much water.
The other big projects we've been doing the last couple of years is really putting water lines out in the pasture and stuff, so that way we can rotational graze. We try to move the cows every 3 days or so.
Okay.
It gets challenging a little bit when we have other jobs and you're not always, you're trying to work around your work trips or anything else you got going on, but that's kind of a goal we shoot for, and we've seen some good success with it, but hoping we can get a little bit more.
So how much pasture do you have, and how many paddocks, and how are you doing?
So right now there's 65 acres of pasture that we have, and there's only 6 different paddocks, but then we do subdivide those up into, there should be 7 paddocks, but then we subdivide them up into smaller ones, and and it's hard to say what kind of size we do, and that's kind of one of the things we've trialed and error too. Is we had bigger paddocks, and now we're starting to shrink them all down, so that way we can kind of contour the paddocks a little bit more too with the different soil types and soil fertility that's out there. Because otherwise, we ran into you're trying to rotate, but your poorer ground still got overgrazed because the grass was never as tall there, so the cows would always go for the fresh new shoots that came out there.
So are the cows run all together, or do you make smaller groups of them too?
They all run together.
The heifers are out of now with the cows.
So the heifers run differently. Okay.
Yep, but all the cows are in the same group.
Okay. So now going back to involvement in the state and the national. So you were trying stuff with NRCS, but now I cut you off and went a different direction.
It's so okay.
Yeah. So now you're doing stuff with the state and the national, and where's that going?
Yeah, so Ted just got on the state Cattlemen's board, more the policy side of things, representing the southern part of the state. I just finished a term on the National Cattlemen's level with the Federation of State Beef Councils, vice president for 3 years, which was a ton of fun. We met a lot of good friends. We actually did some good vacation spots to look at their cows. Really shared some great ideas. And now I'm back on the operating committee for the second year, where the national beef checkoff dollars are decided. So I think we just continue to stay involved, either policy or promotion, and then do work at the local level too, just to really continue to talk about beef. I think our legacy is we want to be known as the beef people.
The beef people?
Yeah, we're getting there.
It's not the flashlight farmers?
Well, both.
Both.
We're the beef flashlight farmers.
And as a whole, Katie's more involved probably on the national stuff, because I'm the one that stays home.
Yeah, somebody's got to stay home and feed cows.
Yeah.
It's always the joke we get together. You're like, oh, you do have a spouse.
Yeah. So you said you found a lot of places of vacation that you liked. So where did you go that you liked and enjoyed? Like, what did you like seeing out there?
So a couple of girlfriends and I actually took a long weekend, went to Florida 2 summers ago to a cattleman, Mr. Strickland, who I actually met at the National Cattlemen's level, and we got to stay at his ranch, and we saw lots of eared cows, and got to go pig hunting, and
nice.
We actually got to participate in alligators, so it was a lot of fun. But it's always interesting to see different parts of the country, different types of cattle, how people run their cattle, what their concerns are. Down in the south, it's obviously heat and water.
Yep.
Up here, it's the cold.
Yep.
So it's interesting just to see that different dynamic, because at the end of the day, it's still beef in the grocery store that someone's going to buy.
So what did you think of eared cattle?
I think they're fun, but I think they would not survive hunting.
Well, and last year, too, we went, not too many people say they go to the sales barn for their vacation, so we went out to Sidney, Montana for one of their big feeder calf runs.
Okay.
And because Katie knew the owners out there from operating committee. And so we went out and visited them, and that was actually fun, just to sit in the sales barn and actually watch the cattle buyers as far as why they would pull certain calves out of the different groups and stuff like that. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. So where was that at?
Sidney, Montana. So it was
Montana.
Right, kind of basically right on the Montana North Dakota border.
Okay. And
we outlasted the cattle buyers.
Did you? Nice.
And they're still talking about that today.
Yeah, they still talking about it. They stopped the sale and said thanks for coming when we left.
Yeah.
Nice. So how many head went through there that day? You remember?
They started at 10 and it was 11.
11:15 before we walked out for the day.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of sitting and a lot of watching.
Yeah.
Man.
And that was just feeder calves, and then we went back. That was on
Wednesday,
and then we came back on Saturday for the cow sale.
The call cost. Well, I worked for USDA for a while in market news, and like I learned very quickly that I cannot sit in a sales barn all day. Like it was just like, oh my gosh.
see, I could sit there all day. It was a ton of fun.
So especially in Kentucky, maybe up north would be better. Like in Montana, like Kentucky, they sell them one at a time.
Yeah.
So it's just like another single.
Yep.
Yeah, no, in Montana there were huge groups. Half the time they didn't fit in the ring.
Well, especially when you
I think that'd be a lot more fun. I wish I would actually go out there sometime and check out a big sale out there.
even when we got to the cull cows on that day, it was like you knew you weren't in Minnesota because the cull cows were coming through by the pot loads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pot 1 of 2, and I was like, what?
Pot 1 of 2.
Yeah.
So in doing all of this national work and stuff, who is some neat people that you've met, or who intrigues you that you've met so far? Who has been really influenced, or who has influenced you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. Probably my number one mentor, who I actually got to meet last week down at National Cattlemen's Convention, was Miss Joanna Smith. She was the first National Cattlemen's women president.
Okay.
In 1985, so even before I was born,
Wow.
from Florida. But I've always kind of looked up to her. Her picture hangs in the hallway. So she was the first. We currently have 3 females now. So she was just a ton of fun to get to know. She gave me some good advice, and I've really got to know her son. He's in line to be the president next year from Florida as well. So that's kind of the first family leadership we've had in the National Cattlemen's. And then Mrs. Jan Lyons from Kansas was the second female president, and I've really got to know her the last couple of years. She's great. Just a ton of information, ton of friendship to be built, and she knows everyone as well, which is super helpful. But I think any of the leaders, and I sit on a lot of national committees, and any of those producers, farmers, ranchers that come from any of the states, I think are just great to know. There's a lot to be positive about in this industry. And I think just helping the people that make the rules and regulations know that we're human and help them understand what we do, I think is pretty the exciting part. But I think it's hard for me to pick one person. We just have had a lot of great friends, a lot of people who are willing to share advice and willing to help you learn what you should or shouldn't do. And advice is always free. It's whether or not you want to take it from them.
And the biggest thing with advice, in my experience, is we've all been there when Grandpa used to give us his old words of wisdom. And when we were kids, we thought he was on crack right at that time. And he was off his rocker. And the older you get, it's like, maybe Grandpa actually knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would say I think some of the advice I've gotten from Australia, we've been there a couple of times. To me, Roger Evans is probably still the best advice giver. I used to think he was crazy, but now when I think back to things he's told us over the trips down under, you come home and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Even countries apart and oceans apart, I'd say Roger's probably helped us out.
And I would say that's kind of the one cool thing about our operation, though, too, is it's not only the connections we made in the state on our involvement nationally, but also we've been to Australia a couple times now, and the connections we made over there, and even just some of the things that we've seen people do over there that we've been able to bring back to our operation and try to implement. Especially more so, I would say, especially when you look at the Australia from their historically a dry environment of how they manage their grass and do that in a dry environment. What can we bring back here? So especially to help alleviate our farm if we do get into a drought situation, that we're prepared for that.
So what's the thing you brought back from Australia that seems to work the best so far?
Biggest thing is rotation.
Yeah.
It's one thing when we've seen it here, but when you go over there and you see their intense rotational grazing that they do, it really shows how good it can do in a dry environment and how it does help you.
I think the other thing we've learned from over there is that if a cow looks thin and you've fed her the same as everybody else, her nutritional requirements are just different, and that might just be an opportunity to send her to another farm because that's just not going to work.
So what from Australia has not worked?
The one thing I would say, the biggest difference I've noticed is their cattle are much bigger. We're trying to bring our cow size down a little bit. Where over there, they're still fairly good sized cows. So I would say it works for them over there, but their size of cattle does not work for us here.
So you haven't brought some back in like a shed burnt down?
No.
Or something blew up.
And we've read on some genetics that have kind of...
Some have worked, some haven't.
You got to be pretty picky and choosy. What their consumers are asking for is a little bit different. And like Ted said, their size is just
What
really
are their consumers asking for down there? Like, why is there a reason they're that big? It's just because that's what they like?
I think part of it, too, though, is a little bit... Everything over there is pretty much grass-fed, or their feedlot rations are more of like a barley-type mixture, where they really don't feed much corn to their cattle. I think that's part of just the different methods of finishing, so their breeding goals are going for a different way than what they are in the United States.
So their stuff's a lot leaner than it is here.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen one cornfield in 3 trips.
Wow. So now going back again to people that you've met, you had quite the opportunity last week to go to Washington, D.C. and see something pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was phenomenal to be Representative Angie Craig's guest of honor to the State of the Union. And to wear cowboy boots on the speaker's floor and to the speaker's balcony. It was just a ton of fun to talk about beef and agriculture, especially to eat beef. And the speaker's chambers was a ton of fun. And then to sit on the balcony and have a conversation, because I had nice cowboy boots on, about beef and what does that really mean, and everything from trade to electronic logging to fake meat. Just a really great opportunity to talk about beef. And really to help some of the elected officials, freshmen or not, on the House floor to understand what they do every day and what they say, how that really impacts us at home, but also the local economies. This small town that we live pretty nearby is full of farmers and ranchers, and really if they change one thing, it could really affect and impact the local economy. So really helping them understand that was a ton of fun. Angie introduced me as a cattle farmer, and people just thought that was pretty cool. And then when Speaker Pelosi says those are some kick-ass cowboy boots.
Wow.
When she noticed them, that was just a lot of fun. And just really interesting. I've seen Trump twice in the last month. And really he understands agriculture, and then to really see that come out was just really nice to actually be mentioned as farmers and ranchers.
So what was it like, so you get the invite, you fly out to D.C. So, what is you get ready, you gotta go through security. What was that all like getting ready for it? Did you have to do anything specific? Obviously you can't bring your knife that you probably usually carry when you're farming, but so what was that all like? What did you have to do to prepare to get ready to go into the chamber and all that stuff?
Well, it actually started before that. They called and asked for my social security number, and I gave them the wrong one.
Oh, that's a good start.
That's great when the Secret Service tells you. You give them your husband's. But so once I got out to D.C., I actually went and found her office that morning.
Her name is Ted? What?
Yeah, I went and found her office just so I knew where it was. I haven't been to D.C. for about 3 years, so I want to make sure I could still get around. And I brought a metal cow and a stand for her as a nice gift. And the service guy was like, "What is this?" And he put it through the scanner again, and he's like, "Do you normally walk around town with a metal cow?" And I said, "Oh, it's a gift." And he goes, "Never seen one of those."
Yep.
And gave it to me and went up to her office and met their staff, and then actually went and visited some other Minnesota senators and representatives and did a little lobbying. Went to the National Cattlemen's office, went and saw the White House, took a nap, and then got ready and went back. And so we really, nothing much happened until it was probably about 3 hours before I had to give up my cell phone, which was pretty hard. And everything else, my watch, and all you could take was your ticket. It was gold, so I called it the golden ticket, and your driver's license. And
did you think about scalping it? See what you could get for it?
No, I was going. And then had to go through a bunch of metal detectors, went to the reception, and then after that went to my seat, which then you had to present your ticket, your driver's license. They made sure you were on the list, I'm sure.
Wow.
And then got seated and watched it, and it was really cool where I was seated. I could actually see all the elected official faces.
Yep.
On the floor. The media was right below me, so if I turned my head, I could see the cameras. But the first lady was 12 seats away from me.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of fun. It was just a really good experience. The gentleman next to me is from Iowa, so pretty close, Cedar Rapids, and he worked for the FSA office. The lady next to me is from Pennsylvania, did a lot of work on gun violence in schools. So just a great array of people, and it was really fun to be part of history, and singing Happy Birthday to the veteran was kind of a cool highlight.
Yeah. So you couldn't even text people saying, "Can you see me on TV?" You couldn't do any of that.
No. So funny story about that. So they'd asked me not to share that I was going because they wanted the media, which was fine. But so my coworker, my boss, had sent out a group text message. "Hey, Katie's at this event. everyone was pretty excited. And then my coworker sent me some pictures when I got my phone back. They were on there and it said, "I found you." And I was like, "How'd she find me?" So I called her Thursday morning and I said, "How did you ever find me?" She goes, "Well, let me tell you." So she Googled me, figured out it was Angie Craig, Representative Angie Craig. Then Googled Representative Angie Craig, found her Twitter and Facebook and Instagram accounts. Saw the video we did before we went to the reception, so she knew what I looked like and was wearing. DVR'd it, and then was like scanning the crowd. And then her husband's like, "Are we ever going to watch this?" And she's like, "No, we're just looking for Katie."
Man, she is quite the stalker.
Yeah, so I give her a lot of credit. So it was a lot of fun to have some pictures from it. We actually need to watch it so I could see some more of it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to have those pictures. I give her credit because, I never would have. But at least I was standing up sometimes because halfway through I was like, it's a lot of work. Yeah,
that's a lot up and down. Like, we watched it, and it's just, like, constantly up and down. It's, like, crazy.
Yeah, after 15 up and downs, I gave up.
Yeah, for sure. So did you watch it, or were you, like, here with your buddies playing poker?
No,
the wife was gone.
I watched it, but I was not nearly as dedicated as her coworker to try to figure out where she was sitting. And to be honest with you, she showed me her outfit, and I kind of had to, like, 4 outfits later, kind of forgot which one she actually packed, so I couldn't tell you what she was actually wearing.
Yeah. So does it get... So she's doing a lot of stuff, so you're the one that's here. So does that have its own challenges in itself in trying to do everything by yourself here?
Oh, yeah, it does. Especially, I mean, we try to make it our schedule when we got to work college or something when she is home, but every once in a while there's always that event that comes up that she's gone, and then you're trying to do everything by yourself, and then the flashlight comes in handy after a while because cows don't always cooperate, and it takes a lot longer than what you had planned.
Yeah,
we're pretty lucky though. My brother's around to help if we ask him to, and then we've got a younger neighbor boy comes from his family's large dairy farm, and he's more than willing to come help, and that's really nice. We've got some good friends around. Yeah. Another one, we kind of trade cow work back and forth. He just came and helped us preg check. We'll go help him move cows. So it's kind of nice to have a good support system.
Yeah, that's good. So how many cows do you guys have?
We're around 30 cows right now.
30 cows right now. So
eventual goals we'd love to get up. We'd love to get more. We'd like to be at least at a minimum of 100, but we're trying to grow slowly.
Yep.
We want to try to grow with cows that work for how we are managing them and are going to work for us. And also so that way we can kind of help develop our pastures and get a pasture base as we grow slowly.
So go ahead.
As I say, we have a rule on this farm. It's either you will produce a profit on the balance sheet. It's either you or your calf. So we'd like you said, we've done that before. We've spent money, gone out and bought a lot of cows. It just hasn't worked. So we'd like to be bigger, but we're going to do this the right way and slowly and still make sure we're making money.
And at the end of the day, it seems like when we go buy cows, it seems like the best ones that stay are the ones that we've developed ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to grow mostly internally rather than try to bring in external animals.
So the dog doesn't have to make a profit?
No, the dog's kind of a house fixture too. She's a good cow dog, but she's kind of a house fixture.
So she can show a loss.
Yeah, she did show a loss.
So do you think you can do 100 cows here on this place? Or are you going to have to...
We're going to have to have more land.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely would have to have a bigger land base in order to do that.
So is that an opportunity to acquire more stuff here, or would it be moving somewhere else? Or
there's a little bit of both.
We haven't really... It's going to be there's a few chances around that we know that maybe in the next 5 to 10 years of acquiring more land closely. There's also... I've struggled with trying to rent ground because there's some very aggressive people around here too, but also it's hard to go rent them without having the cows, but I don't want to have the cows if I know I don't have the grass. So it's kind of a catch-22 for me when it comes to that. So We've also looked, we're not married to this place. If another opportunity would come up somewhere else where we could expand and it would make sense for us, we're definitely open to the options.
So what do you...
I'd say everything we have is for sale for the right price.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think... What do you think you could run here with your, would you say, 65 acres of pasture? And you got the paddocks, say you got everything smoking good.
Everything was smoking good. I figure I can get right around that 45 to 50 cows.
Okay.
We have friends that we've rented pasture before that have said, hey, if you get in a tough spot, we'd be more than happy to have you back.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing we've found, too, with fall calving,
we can stock our pastures a little bit heavier because we don't have that calf really eating any of the grass. It's just the cow.
Yeah. So where are you getting your winter feed? I mean, are you buying all your hay, or
we buy all of our hay?
You buy all your hay.
Just fantastic.
Yeah, right now with this great hay market.
Yeah.
It's definitely a seller's market.
But when we look at the number of cows we have with our off-farm jobs and time commitment, and by the time we'd invest in any of the equipment for buying hay or produce to make our own hay, we're still better off to buy it.
Yeah.
We have friends that we have a few of the dairy guys that will trade hours on the dairy farm for some hay and straw, which is kind of nice, kind of offsets things.
Yeah.
Build sweat equity.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. So that's the future of Brenny Farms, potentially.
Yep.
What do you, with your being in the state and national, what do you think the future is for the beef industry nationally, statewide, countywide? Where do you see things?
Countywide, I'd say the county organizations are kind of getting a little stronger. I think as the younger group, right, our age bracket comes back, they want to get involved. They need to get involved and be a part of something. So I think that's going well. The state, Cattlemen's, you could probably speak to that, but I think it's going pretty well. Membership's been increasing involvement. On the national level, the future of the checkoff is a little bit uncertain right now, but hopefully we can work with our elected officials to keep that in national law statute to continue to collect dollars to do some promotional work. I think overall the beef industry is looking strong. The neat thing I think about beef and the beef community is that, like us, you can have off-farm jobs and still have a few cows. You can still have an FFA project or a 4-H project and still have a few cows. So I think that's the really neat thing about the beef community is you can still have smaller numbers. I mean, the average herd size in Minnesota is 32 cows. So we're average, which is kind of nice for once. But I think that's the neat part, but it also provides some challenges when it comes to some of the, the animal identification, traceability, helping livestock farmers and ranchers, especially in the beef, understand the whole story. So there's goods and bads, but I think the unique part is that we have a lot of producers in this state, over 16,000, that are involved in different capacities.
And I would say I look at it as a beef industry as a whole, the future is very positive. One thing in that this past year, we were able to go to China and Japan, where we were able to tell our story to those markets, as the consumers over there care a lot too about where their food comes from, and they want to understand where the producers that's growing it, or the farmer and rancher that's growing your food. So we were able to go over there and tell that story, and to be able to see the increase in the foreign markets, I feel it makes it even more positive for the future of the beef industry here in the United States, as they understand we're producing a good product of beef, and they want that.
Tell me your tongue fact.
Oh, for every tongue that we export to Japan, it increases our carcass values by $12.20.
Wow.
And interestingly, in Japan, a black tongue is worth more than a white tongue.
Wow. Why is that?
We have no idea.
We have no idea.
But if we could get in that niche market.
Yeah. Start breeding your cows for black tongues.
Yeah, I think that was probably the highlight, I'd say, of our beef involvement this far was that trip with United States Meat Export Federation. I mean, when you go to Japan and go up the Sky Tree Tower and just it looks the same wherever you go for 360 and just people, the sheer amount of volume. I mean, we can't eat any more beef in the U.S. really than what we're already eating to grow sustainably. So I think the U.S. export markets are going to be huge, and what that group does to promote U.S. product of pork and beef is just, it's crazy, and they're fantastically good at it. And to me, that's where we need to spend more dollars is just in those overseas markets.
Like, I'm a visual person, so for me, you see the population of China, you see the population of Japan. Yes, they're big numbers, but when you're actually there and you see it in perspective, they are big populations.
Or when Ted is trying to get off the train and the train doors are closing and we're all off.
And you can't get through.
Yeah.
And we have seen it, and it is true in Japan, in Tokyo, in the subway system. There literally are people that are hired to push you in so the doors can close because
Wow. So you really feel like cattle almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
So going back to what you said a little bit earlier, you said just where does your food come from? So there seems to be a big division right now in the U.S. about where your food comes from and all that stuff, the story of where does it come. People want to know where it comes from.
Yep.
So what's the biggest misconception of the beef industry for those people that are looking at saying that what we're doing is wrong or not? We're not looking out for the animal welfare and stuff like that. What do you see there?
I would say one of the biggest misconceptions is kind of like you mentioned, the animal welfare. People kind of look at they look at the cow as kind of their pets in their house, and they live a completely different life. Us as a farmer, our goal is we want to keep the cow as comfortable as it can and happy. An example of that we see every winter. People always ask, "Oh, you put the cows in the barn?" No, we don't, because they actually prefer to be outside. It would be like, the best way to describe it is, it'd be like you taking your winter coat on and sitting in your house all day. Eventually, you're going to start to sweat and you're going to get pretty hot. Well, that's the same way for the cow, because they're built to be outside, and that's where they want to be. The big thing is to keep them out of the wind, but that's kind of the misconceptions is that way, or the use of everybody. I don't know where it all comes, but everybody thinks all we do is feed antibiotics to our cows, and we treat our cows no different than a lot of people do with their kids. I mean, it's when you take them to the doctor when they're sick, and that's when we give them antibiotics. We just don't feed them to them to feed them antibiotics. We only like to give it to them when they're sick.
Mm-hmm. I'd say the thing for me is we enjoy to open up the farm gate, have ton of visitors out here, or through our Facebook page. We like to do a lot of live videos and photos for people actually to see what it's like that can't make it to the farm. Mazeppa, Minnesota is not a big tourist destination. But I think not yet. I was going to say, my concern would be, I love when people come out here and see what we do, ask questions, get to touch, get to feel the grass and see what we're doing. But they're always like, I want to support you. How do I support you? Well, I always say, go to the grocery store and buy beef. Well, I want to buy your beef. Okay, well, we all raise beef, all of us farmers and ranchers. And so I think helping them understand that connection, that what we do here is great and wonderful, but the calves do leave Brenny Farms and go to the next part of the beef community. So really helping them understand that anytime they buy beef, they're supporting a farmer or a rancher. It's not just me. I'd say that's probably what we find a lot with the folks from the city. They just, how do we support you? We'll go buy product in the grocery store. So I think helping them make that connection, and the fact that I always love when we tell them we buy beef in the grocery store too. I mean, we go to Hy-Vee or the local meat market just like they would. It's pretty fun to see their eyeballs and their brains start thinking like, oh, okay, I got it. So to me, that's kind of helping them understand that connection.
The disconnect there, or whatever you want, the misconception. So you did something the other day I saw on Facebook of, was it basketball and beef or beef and basketball? Mm-hmm. So what was that?
So varsity basketball games in high school aren't always the most riveting at halftime. So another friend of mine and I actually came up with an idea. Her daughter plays basketball, and we're like, hey, we should do something to promote agriculture. We do live in a small community, but yet we've got a lot of kids who have never been to a farm or a ranch, a lot of parents who work in either the Twin Cities or Rochester and live in our communities. So as you came into the basketball game Monday and Friday night, you had a question. The question you had Monday night was,
how many basketballs are made from one cowhide?
What's your guess, John?
8.
12.
Oh, close. That was my initial. I should have stuck with it. Maybe I switched it right there.
And then my question Friday night was, how many pounds of beef does a U.S. consumer consume every year?
Ooh.
3 digits.
3 digits. I'll say right at 100.
227.
227,
yeah.
Wow.
So as people came in, we asked them those questions. They put their guesses in the bucket, and then we pulled out the right ones and drew for $50 beef bucks at halftime to use at a grocery store to buy beef, which is pretty fun. And then anybody who wanted to come shoot a 3-throw at halftime, if you made a basket, you got a free bag of beef jerky. That was pretty fun to see. It was mainly kids both nights, but kids from both towns or both schools came down to shoot hoops. And the refs even got involved Friday night. They wanted a bag of beef jerky. So that was a lot of fun.
And that's even one thing that, in a small town, that it kind of takes you a step back every once in a while, that you think, oh, we live in a farming community, but how many of the people still have very many misconceptions of what you are doing out there? Mm-hmm. And you just take it for granted because you're in a small town that everybody knows what's going on, and they don't.
Yeah.
We had a younger student Friday night. He wore the state costume around through the first half of the game, so that got people asking, what are you doing, Baxter? So that was a lot of fun, and it's just fun and the basketball teams and the players were announced they threw up beef sticks, and so they were pretty excited. So it's creating something different atmosphere, and sharing some fun facts about beef.
So where do you get, are you getting donations then for the beef sticks and the beef bucks at the grocery store?
Yeah, we worked with the Minnesota Beef Council. They've got a local producer promotion project where you can apply. And then the other half of it came from our county farm bureau, just out promoting food and agriculture in the county.
Okay. So what if where would you somebody wants to get involved? Where do they start? Where do they go?
I would start by finding a farmer or rancher, and if you already one, connecting with your commodity groups. If that's beef, which is ours, there's corn and soybean growers, there's Farm Bureau, there's Farmers Union. There's just different groups to get involved, Common Ground. I think you got to find what fits in your schedule. Everybody would love to have us as volunteers, but we really prioritize in this house, where do we get the return for the farm, and then what can we maximize in doing. So we've had to say no to some things, but I think if you're looking to get involved, is just find something that you're passionate about, even if it's that a parent group or a church group, to really just kind of help spread the word about agriculture.
And even if you don't want to get involved on, say, a state level, a lot of the state associations are a good starting point because they can give you the contact for just your local level organizations of who you can connect with there to be able to get involved with them.
Okay.
I love to pull people into activities, as you know, John.
I know.
It's always fun to do it. It's more fun for us to do it with friends that we like to hang out with and can share ideas with.
So speaking of fun, as we kind of wrap up here, do you guys have any time to do anything fun with yourselves, or are you guys just constantly never together so you can't do anything?
Well, we bonded yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, in negative 10-degree weather. My husband thought it was going to be so much fun to run the Twin Cities in Motion Valentine's Day 5K. So we bundled up with, I tried to run fast, but every time I tried, I hit ice. So yeah, we enjoyed a run. We like to be outside in the summer. We've got some gardens. We enjoy to pull weeds in together. What else do we like to do? Like to camp.
We go camping quite a bit in the summer. A lot more summer activities than winter activities that we do.
Yeah, winter activities are really around planning for the farm, looking at bull catalogs with a glass of wine is date night usually around here.
Bull sales are always a fun date night.
Been to many bull sales yet?
We're headed to one in Denver next weekend.
Yep.
Oh, who sells that?
Walter Angus.
Okay.
A good friend we met through National Cattlemen's at lunch one day.
Yeah. I just went to a sale on Friday. It was 5 hours from my house, so I was like, oh yeah, I will stay with my friend's house in Northfield, and I'll cut 2 hours off. But it's still, from Northfield to there, took me 5 hours because the city was a mess.
Yeah.
So Friday I spent over 10 hours in the car trying to go to a sale. So that was fun. But
we enjoy to watch them via technology on that big TV in the living room.
I know. But there were some people there I wanted to talk to face to face, so I was like, I'm going to go. And I've never been to that sale. And they built a new sale facility, so I wanted to see it. So
yeah, that's what we do. We kind of try to rotate where we go.
And that's sometimes now it's gotten to the point, too. You don't necessarily go to the bull sales because you're interested in something. It's more because you know of some of your friends that are going to be there, and that's kind of your annual get-together to see each other.
That's your date night.
Yeah.
Well, we like we're going to go out to Denver next weekend. We've seen their cattle. We've visited them a couple times, but really want to see them kind of with their best dresses on, right, on sale day, and kind of see what they look like. And
so you coming home with a bull or two, or
we'll see. This is more of a research.
You never know.
You never know. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that's what we like to do. I don't really. We are home together every once in a while. We like to go to high school sporting events in the winter. We're big high school supporters here.
Yeah.
Nothing else to do on a Tuesday or
So
Thursday.
did you go to Zambroda, Mazeppa?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
The kids I babysit are now seniors and juniors. It's kind of scary.
Makes you feel young.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that's kind of a wrap of it. If you guys got anything else to say.
I would just say if you're a farmer or rancher and listening, you got to get somewhat involved somehow. If it's something small to something big, but it's really, your involvement does matter. I found that out last week in D.C. that really just, sometimes you think you're just a farmer or rancher, but it really shows when you wear those boots on Capitol Hill and other places that people really do have an interest. It's easy for me to strike up a conversation on an airplane. Met a guy 2 weeks ago from Africa who just had tons of interest because he noticed my boots once again.
Yeah.
So invest in a good pair of boots. But it really is a great conversation because people are like, oh, I've never met a farmer or rancher before.
Yeah.
So it really is kind of a cool job title.
Kind of down that path yesterday, I ran to Best Buy to get something for this podcast. And the cashier guy, I don't know, he's probably 18, 19, asked me why, because I bought like a USB port splitter. And he's like, so what are you doing? And I go, well, actually, I'm starting a podcast. And he's like, really? And I go, yeah. And he was like, what's the topic? I go, the beef industry. And he looked at me and goes, really? I go, yeah. He goes, that actually might be something I'd be interested in listening to. And I was just like, wow, out of the nowhere, just some random guy just like was like intrigued by it. So yeah, I mean, definitely.
And the one thing I've learned too over this whole experience is just when you get involved a little bit, a lot of the people with their misconceptions, it's not that they're intentionally trying to know the wrong information. They've never had no exposure and they just don't know anything else. That's what they've read online, and they have no reason to think anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the Common Ground dinner we did 2 years ago in the pasture with the cows, the people there just had no idea. And once they got to meet us and we built some good relationships, they're like, oh, I get it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just helping to have them a place to go ask questions too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you two for being the inaugural podcast of Let's Talk Beef. And hopefully we can do it again sometime. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, make sure you have a good steak tonight.
I will try to. So, once again, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you later. See ya. So there you have it, the first episode of the Let's Talk Beef podcast. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us, as I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, as we have much more to come from all across the country. Also, please go and check out the Let's Talk Beef podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So once again, thanks, and as Katie said, go out and have a good steak tonight.
These shows when you wear those boots on Capitol Hill and other places that people really do have an interest. It's easy for me to strike up a conversation on an airplane. Met a guy 2 weeks ago from Africa who just had tons of interest because he noticed my boots once again.
Yeah.
So invest in a good pair of boots. But it really is a great conversation because people are like, oh, I've never met a farmer or rancher before.
Yeah.
So it really is kind of a cool job title.
Kind of down that path yesterday. I ran to Best Buy to get something for this podcast. And the cashier guy, I don't know, he's probably 18, 19, asked me why, because I bought like a USB port splitter. And he's like, so what are you doing? And I go, well, actually, I'm starting a podcast. And he's like, really? And I go, yeah. And he was like, what's the topic? I go, the beef industry. And he looked at me and goes, really? I go, yeah. He goes, that actually might be something I'd be interested in listening to. And I was just like, wow, out of the nowhere, just some random guy just like was like intrigued by it. So yeah, I mean, definitely.
And the one thing I've learned too over this whole experience is just when you get involved a little bit, a lot of the people with their misconceptions, it's not that they're intentionally trying to know the wrong information. They've never had no exposure and they just don't know anything else. That's what they've read online, and they have no reason to think anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the Common Ground dinner we did 2 years ago in the pasture with the cows, the people there just had no idea. And once they got to meet us and we built some good relationships, they're like, oh, I get it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just helping to have them a place to go ask questions too.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I would like to thank you two for being the inaugural podcast of Let's Talk Beef. And hopefully we can do it again sometime. This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, make sure you have a good steak tonight.
I will try to. So, once again, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you later. See ya. So there you have it, the first episode of the Let's Talk Beef podcast. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us, as I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, as we have much more to come from all across the country. Also, please go and check out the Let's Talk Beef podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So once again, thanks, and as Katie said, go out and have a good steak tonight.